Okay, I think we would start now. Okay, so what we were discussing, we just talked about scattering, so in the previous we just talked about pseudo temperature, and the drift part in the scattering. So basically, the particle has drifted. Like let's say it has gone from one cell to another. We have calculated the pseudo temperature of that cell. So basically, we have contributed the particle's contribution to the flux or temperature of that cell. And now we are arriving at a point where the particle would actually now scatter. So after scattering, the particle would go to a new state, which we would determine how it would go. So basically, the unclap processes, which we have already talked about, they pose a resistance to the energy transport. So if you remember, omega 2 K2, omega 1 K1, and omega 3 K3, these were our normal processes. So normal processes. And then we had unclap processes, basically omega 2 K2, where the some of the part of the momentum has been transferred to the some part of the momentum has been transferred to the lattice, through this G vector, this lattice vector. So these were our unclap processes. So as we mentioned, in unclap processes actually give rise to this resistance. So there is a resistance in the system because the particle now has started moving backwards. Like compared to the normal processes, there is a, of course, a redistribution of the phonon particles. So there is would be a finite value of thermal conductivity because of normal processes. But in the unclap processes, there would be a intrinsic resistance to the system. Okay, so that's what it has been said here. Normal processes indirectly affects the transport by altering the frequency distribution. So the particles were coming with certain energy. Now the frequency of the particle is different. So the frequency distribution has changed. So that's how they alter the transport properties. But the unclap processes directly provide the resistance to the flow. In the energy conservation is verified in both of them, but the momentum conservation, if you remember, the normal processes was momentum was directly conserved, and in the case of when the part of the energy is transferred to the lattice, then it is given to the G vector, like the lattice vector. Okay, so now the information we need, before we start this code is, so we have to find the scattering time of the two polarization branches, like as a function of frequency and the temperature. So basically what we are saying is, so that was our phonon, like omega versus K. So let's say we have only a one branch. So only we so far we even the monatomic chain, diatomic chain we did it for under the harmonic approximation. So within the harmonic approximation, like phonon frequencies, we got omega with respect to the k. So there was a one particular value of omega we got at a one particular value of k. But in reality, that's not what happens. Like there are of course anharmonic terms. And if we look at the data for anharmonic terms, so basically what it does, like we include higher order terms, that leads to the broadening of the frequency. Basically what we mean by that, let's say we make a 1D cut from here to here. So let's call this point 1, this called it point 2. So the frequency here is omega 1, omega 2, and this is intersecting the phonon at some frequency omega 0. So if I plot from omega 1 to omega 2, and I plot now the intensity when we are measuring, let's say, phonon at a one particular k vector. So wherever the intersection is, like we would get a high intensity. So that's where the phonon is. But what happens is it's not a delta function. So this delta function at omega 0 would happen only in the harmonic approximation. But in the if we include an harmonic term, especially the third order term, then the distribution would have some finite width. Like if we look at this finite width, so there would be some finite full width half maximum. Like there would be some finite value. And this finite width actually is proportional, inversely proportional to the lifetime of the particle. When we do experimental measurement of phonons, actually we get this distribution, and this distribution we could fit it to, let's say, Lorentzian, or like if both sides are available, then depth harmonic oscillators, like basically the Stokes and anti-Stokes. We haven't talked about that, so I won't go in detail of that. So this full width half maximum actually tells us like it's inversely proportional to the tau. So basically, and it tells us directly like how long the particle would survive. So let's say the larger the width of the, if this is, so it means the larger the width is, it means the lifetime of particle is very small. So particle would scatter very quickly. So this scattering time. So basically, we do the experiment. We could determine this tau, or from theory, we could determine this full width half maxima or tau both. So that information we need it for the entire omega space. Like basically for this one, now we know. Let's say this is tau omega 0. We need it for this this point also on the curve. This point, for all the possible points, we need the phonon lifetimes. So basically, we need this tau value for all the phonon frequencies. So now what would happen, like we haven't included the temperature effect also, but if you include temperature, maybe what could happen is this dispersion might shift downwards because of thermal expansion. So what could happen in this case, the phonon frequency has changed, but beside phonon frequency, this tau also might get changed here. So the broadening might also change with temperature. So basically, as a function of temperature, and as a function of omega, we need this value of tau. Like that's kind of input data we have to either get from the experiments or theory, or we could use some empirical models which also exist. So coming back to our slide, so that's the kind of tau we are looking for. So we need to know this tau for all polarizations. So we need to know this tau for both polarization, like the transfer longitudinal. We could get it from simulations or experiments. So once we have that, how could we implement that? Like, so now if you solve the term by putting this Vg term 0, so you could get the expression like the probability, the time scale of the scattering, like how the scattering would happen. So the probability you could compute using probability of scattering, like 1 minus exponential of delta t tau nu. And tau nu is a combination of normal processes and Umfla process. So we have taken both the processes into account. So basically, again, we would draw a random number and compare it with the PNU. So if random number is less than PNU, then the phonons is going to be scattered. If phonons are scattered, then we would redraw the phonon frequency, wave vector, and polarization. If phonon is like if the random number is greater than PNU, then the phonon won't scatter. It would again drift, and after drift, then we would again check whether it would scatter or not. So if the phonon is scattered, if the probability comes out less than that, then it would be scattered, and we would reset the phonon frequency, which we have found it in like how we did it with the initialization. We would do the same procedure. We would reset the phonon frequency, wave vector, and the polarization. We would come in next lecture. So this reset of phonon frequency is not just done through the same distribution. It is done through little bit different distribution, which corresponds to the tau part also. We would come back to that in the next lecture. Okay, so now we are done with particle has drifted to this position. We have tallied its, we have found the local temperature or the pseudo temperature. Now we have also scattered it. Now again it would go back, like keep going, keep going. So when we are resetting the phonon frequency, like distribution, we have to use this temperature T tilde, like the pseudo temperature, because that's the temperature of the cell, like equivalent equilibrium temperature we have found. And resetting the stand, like what it does is essentially it thermalizes the phonon and helps in the restoring the equilibrium. That's what the scattering step was doing in the first place. Like it was trying to restore restore the equilibrium. So if we take the pseudo temperature T tilde and we reset the phonon like with respect to that T tilde, so basically we are creating a thermalization in the system. So now very like one particular point which comes in now. So once we reset the phonon, like when we change the frequency of a certain phonon, this energy conservation gets violated. So let's say a phonon was of energy some frequency omega 1, and after scattering it is omega 2. So the energy has now changed. Like if we calculate the energy, the way we were calculating internal energy, so the energy would of the system would change. And we cannot violate the energy principle. We need to do something like to get rid of this part, like where we have this violated the energy conservation. Okay, so after all scattering processes have been completed, so we would compare the look at the actual energy of each spatial bin EA, but the target energy would be little bit different because of this violation of energy conservation. So what we would do in this case, like we could take this creation destruction scheme, like where we would continuously add or delete particle from a cell until we match the energy within some tolerance. And we would draw these particles from the equilibrium distribution at pseudo temperature T bar. So basically, each time we like scatter the particle, because the phonon frequency is different, so the energy conservation would be violated. So once the energy conservation is violated, we have to keep adding or deleting the particles until and unless like RET minus EA, like we reach the value which is within certain tolerance number. Like once we reach that tolerance number, then we would say okay. But the particle we would draw is from the pseudo temperature equilibrium distribution, pseudo temperature T bar. Okay, so the next term is scattering from impurity. So we have considered the scattering from Clap processes, and we have considered scattering from the normal processes. Okay, so now we have to do scattering by impurities. Basically, if there is a system like any material, like there could be some impurities in the system. So maybe this is made up of something else. So there is some impurity. So the phonon and which is traveling, it could get impacted by this impurity. Okay, so the impurity time scale also we could estimate, like what would be the time scale of the scattering from impurities, like let's call it tau I. And again, we could compare if it would get scattered through impurity by drawing a random number, like how we perform this random number. Okay. So one very distinct change what happens through the impurity scattering is, like, so we'll go back again in detail. So let's say this is the lattice, like I'm drawing. Let's say this was the impurity. So phonon comes, it gets scattered at this position. So although it's a scattering, like what we are doing, we are not drawing the new particle. So after scattering from the impurity, what we would assume is like the particle could get its direction randomized. Like so now it could change in direction in any way. So basically impurity would also create a hindrance to the flow. As you could see, the direction would get randomized in this case. The particle flow could flow backwards as well. So the direction randomization creates this hindrance to the flow. So the impurity keeps the frequency as it is. Omega does not change. The only thing which changes is the direction of the particle after scattering from the impurity. So basically that's what we are writing here. The frequency of the scattered phonon is left unaltered. So basically the magnitude of the wave vector is also doesn't change. The only thing which changes the direction of the wave vector we had drawn. So this direction we have to resample through the same process we had defined earlier. So you would resample the phonon, the direction of the wave vector, and then you would find out like the flow propagate the particle in the new direction. Okay, so this impurity part is clear. The impurity and unclap, like how they are different.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sure.
Okay, so let's go to the next part now. Why in the first place we are using this Monte Carlo approach? So let me ask you this question first, like without reading the slides, like can you like mention like why we started using this Monte Carlo approach instead of any like maybe discrete ordinate method or some other deterministic approach, like instead of using that, why we were using this Monte Carlo approach?
I think, sir, there are a lot of variables involved over here,
Yeah,
including the scattering.
right.
So that may
So
lead to use of Monte Carlo approach.
yeah, that's a one good reason. Like anything else you could think of? Okay, let me talk about that. It's written in this slide. So basically, the major reason why we use is like there are various types of scattering processes. As we could see from here, like we talked about unclap processes, normal processes. We talked about impurities, like there could be scattering from dislocations, there could be scattering from boundaries also. We haven't spoken about scattering from boundaries yet. So all of these scattering processes have different physics. Like basically, as you remember, in normal processes, frequency get resetted, but it's all the particle is propagating still in the same direction. In unclap processes, the frequency get resetted, also particle direction gets resetted. In impurities, frequency remains same, but the particle direction get resetted. In the boundary scattering, it could be specular or diffuse, like depending on how the scattering. So all these scattering conditions, like physics is very different how the particle is getting changed, like in terms of frequency or the direction. So to explain different physics using deterministic approaches is a little bit tricky. So how we deal with it is like through Mathiasson rule. So I don't have that Mathiasson rule here, but let me describe what Mathiasson rule is. So basically, we inversely sum all the scattering processes, like tau from impurity, or let's say tau from some other dislocation or something, or spin scattering or electron scattering. So that's what Mathiasson rule like tells us. Like all the scattering processes, like we could get a like inverse sum of those, and that would be equal to the equivalent 1/tau. And then we could use this one value of tau to explain our like phenomena, like how the particle would change. But as we know already, the normal unclap, impurity, dislocation, they all scatter very differently. Like in some cases, the frequency get resetted. In some cases, it doesn't. Some cases, the direction doesn't get resetted. So, or maybe like direction doesn't, the particle doesn't propagate backwards like in normal processes. So Mathiasson rule combines all the different physics into a one number, but in reality, that thing is not very physical because different physics are associated with different scattering processes. So if we have to take into account those different physics of the particles, like then we have to stick with this Monte Carlo approach. It's very easy to implement in this case, as we are seeing already. So in this case, like this gives us a very distinct advantage to do that. Also in deterministic process, if we have too many variables, it's very hard to handle, as one of the participants was mentioning. Okay, so but like using Monte Carlo solution doesn't mean like it's always good. Like there are of course some limitations associated with the simulation, and we have to take some precautions before proceeding with the simulations. So one of them is like when we choose a time step for a simulation, it has to be smaller than the time step of smallest scattering time scale. So basically, let's say the minimum scattering time of phonon was 0.1 picosecond. So your time step should be less than 0.1 picosecond. Your time step cannot be larger than that. Otherwise, you cannot sample properly those scattering events. So if we go back to the tau, like so typically this tau, if I plot with frequency, it could vary 6 to 7 order of magnitude also. Like so maybe typically tau would have some distribution, like so some particle would have some large tau, some less tau. So it could vary like this order of distribution of this tau could be quite significant, 6 order of magnitude. So we have to worry about that. So it's not an easy problem to tackle. So maybe if minimum time scale is 0.1 picosecond, like minimum tau is 0.16 picosecond, your simulation has to be smaller than 0.1 picosecond. So it might take a very, very long time before you could sample efficiently if you want to access the nanosecond time scale. So it would take a very, very long time. So it's not always easy. Like, so choosing this value of time step, and we have to take in consideration the smallest scattering time scale. So we shouldn't be larger than that. Okay, so then another thing is like the time step should be small enough so that the fastest traveling phonon, like so phonons, as you remember, like they have different group velocity, phonon group velocity, which was given by this slope. Group velocity was maximum at this point and the minimum around the zone boundary. So we have to make sure this time step is small enough, like so the fastest traveling phonon doesn't travel a distance which exceeds the characteristic spatial bin size. So whatever bin size we have chosen, so we should make sure like it doesn't exceed that characteristic bin size. Otherwise, it would hop completely, like it would go very fast. So we have to worry about the spatial bin sizes as well. So these are the like two precautions if we take into consideration, like then we could like efficiently solve this Boltzmann transport equation using this Monte Carlo approach. Okay, so next we would take some examples, and I would like to know first your opinion. Like, so I would give a couple of minutes so that you could think what solution is. Although solution is given in this problem, but this would help us visualize what's happening. So let me first describe the problem. So we have a one-dimensional bar. You could think we are treating it as one dimension because the side boundaries are adiabatic. If you remember in adiabatic, it's always specular reflection. So it doesn't matter like if it's so the particle would specularly reflect, so it's not creating any resistance to the flow. So we could treat it equivalently as a 1D object. So the left boundary we have kept at 20 Kelvin, right boundary we have kept it at 10 Kelvin. So the particle would like, of course, to come in thermal equilibrium, like they would try to come in the thermal equilibrium. So what would be the temperature profile inside that? And the length of this this is a 400 nanometer thick. So what do you think would be the temperature profile inside? Actually, in the next we have 5-6 examples only in their solution. So traditionally, if you apply the Fourier law, like it would directly give you the straight line, like 20 to 10 Kelvin linear distribution, right? At steady state condition. And I'm asking answer in the steady state condition itself.
It will give, sir, a totally uniform temperature, I think, for years law.
So you're saying Fourier law won't give this linear distribution from 20 to 10?
So it's a 20 to 10, then it will give linear distribution.
Yeah, because it's a 20 to 10 Kelvin, like so it would give a
Right,
linear
right.
distribution, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like now we have looked at some of the parts. At least in first few lectures we talked about some of these limits, like this ballistic limit, quasi ballistic limit. What do you think
Right.
now? Let's say the mean free path of the phonon is much larger than 400 nanometer. So basically the tau is a really, really large number. Like let's say we could even take maybe 1 microsecond or so, or even larger, because this is artificial problem we are making. Or
Right.
let's mean free path is also quite large. It's much, much larger than 400 nanometers. So we are in a ballistic limit, right? Ballistic transport, basically where the phonons are traveling ballistically, they could only scatter with the boundary.
Mm-hmm.
So in that limit, what would happen? Like how the temperature distribution should look like? So again, it's not an easy problem. So one more variable you should know, like the Debye temperature is also quite high. By temperature is the temperature. So basically, what we do is if that's the dispersion relation. Like we take some linear function, like corresponding to the maximum frequency. Like we take a cutoff at omega d, and through that omega d, we find this Debye temperature. So basically, Debye temperature actually defines some cutoff frequency at omega d, and corresponding to that, we find that temperature. So it's like you could think of it as a characteristic temperature of a sample, like after which most of the phonons would be occupied. Basically, the heat capacity, like if we are looking at heat capacity curve with time, so maybe after Debye temperature, it would be more or less becoming start to become constant. So it's like a characteristic curve for a system. So the temperature of the Debye temperature of this is 345. So our temperature, what we are looking at, is much less than the Debye temperature. So basically, not all phonons are occupied. So that's why the low energy phonons are only occupied, which would have a very long mean free path, like much greater than 400 nanometers. So in those cases, like where we have a very long mean free path, probably you have heard of the Stephen Boltzmann law. So in this case, the heat conduction is actually governed by the Stephen Boltzmann law, which tells us like it would be combination of left boundary, right boundary power 4 divided by 2 power 1 by 4. If you calculate that number, that would come out 17 point something. So basically, in this case, the heat transport would be governed by this Stephen Boltzmann law. So if you solve using Stephen Boltzmann law, so the entire boundary would become reach at a constant temperature, and that constant temperature would be around 17. So if you follow the same procedure, like what we have described using Monte Carlo, solve this Boltzmann transport equation, you would get these markers, which is pretty close to the this solid line which you get it from this Stephen Boltzmann law. So basically, the entire solution would become constant. Like even the walls could not get thermalized with the, like as if you remember in the ballistic and quasi-ballistic limit, the wall temperature is not necessarily same as the temperature at the left end or like just immediately right after the wall. There could be drop. But in this case, the entire temperature throughout the domain becomes a constant. And the reason it becomes constant, it is like left and right boundary are much less than this Debye temperature. So the conduction is actually governed by the Stephen Boltzmann law. So if you apply this Monte Carlo solution, you would recover this, which is given by the marker. So within some error bar, so you have to increase the number of particles and everything to reduce the error bar. But you get very close to the actual solution. Is this problem making sense or not? So is it problem clear? Like how we verify our algorithm? Okay, I think let's move on to the next problem then. Okay, so the next problem is a diffusive limit, and now you have to give some specific regions. Like, so I would give you next 5 minutes to think about this problem, like why we are doing it. So the problem is again very similar to the previous one: adiabatic wall, so that there is no resistance to the flow from the side wall. The left boundary is at 500, the right boundary it has 300, and the Debye temperature is 345, so it's more than that, and this is 400 nanometer. Think about this problem, like of course solution is given here. So think about this problem and like let me know like what do you think, like why we are getting this type of a solution. So let's take 4 5 minutes for you to understand and then I would answer. Okay, so let me describe the solution then. So in this case, we are taking a diffusive limit at high temperature. So the most of the phonons would have mean free path smaller than the, the length. So if we assume the average mean free path is 20 times smaller than the length, like this 400 nanometer, so there would be many such scattering events happening in the system. So if there are so many scattering events happening in the system, so basically we are getting to the diffusive limit or the Fourier heat transfer, where collisions like the system has thermalized completely. And as you could see, the Fourier solution would also, analytical solution or the Fourier solution would also predict a linear line from here to here. And the Monte Carlo solution using this technique also would predict this solution. So again, this gives us a verification of this algorithm. Like it's able to predict two extreme limits of the heat transport. One is ballistic, where the phonon mean free path is much longer than the length of the object, the length of the, let's say, rod, or phonon mean free paths are much smaller, like at least 20 times smaller than the this length of the rod. Temperature plays a role also. So we could look at the quasi-ballistic condition as well. In the quasi-ballistic condition, now, like, let's say the resident time is about like the phonon mean free path is of the order of, let's say, 2L or L by 2, something of this order. Like if you take it, so then there would be a quasi-ballistic condition. And can you think like how the quasi-ballistic transport would look like now in that case? In the quasi-ballistic case also, the boundaries won't get thermalized completely. So there would be, of course, some deviation from the wall temperatures. And more or less the solution would be something like this. It's a thin wall, like we are considering the resident time to be 2L and L by 2. Okay, so this is a 2D problem. Again, we are looking at the diffusion transport. So the problem is such that there is a two-dimensional body. So the left wall we have set it to 600 Kelvin. Top wall is at 500 Kelvin. Right wall is at 400 Kelvin. And the bottom wall is at 300 Kelvin. So you could solve this problem analytically using Fourier law, or you could solve this problem. And after solving the problem, because the four wall temperature difference, this wall is really hot. So that's the kind of temperature distribution, like temperature scale is given here, like it's on the gray scale. So the 600 is really white. So this wall is at around 600 temperature. So that would be kind of a temperature profile you would get within the
Sorry, sir,
Fourier
I
heat.
was discontinued. I was discontinued. Some phone call came on my mobile, so I was discontinued.
Okay, no problem. We would describe, we would come back to previous problem again. But so the current problem is like we are again looking at the diffusive limit in 2 dimension, and the four
Mm.
walls temperature is different. Like so, the left wall
Different
is
one, right? Right.
right. So if you solve it using a Fourier solution,
Mm-hmm.
basically, so that's the kind of distribution you would get.
Yes, sir.
But if you solve it Monte Carlo, our solution should be fairly close to that value because it's a diffusive limit we are taking. So basically, the length, like the mean free path, is much less than the length of the object. So basically, this dimension, if it's L, so mean free path is much less than L. And if we do Monte Carlo, we get the roughly the same profile. And if we pseudo temperature, like we're looking at, if you remember, we defined the pseudo temperature in the cells by comparing the energies. And if we take the difference, like difference is of the order of like 17 Kelvin or so, like somewhere around 17 Kelvin. Like some places, like here, it's about minus 19. So basically, the error is relatively small. And we could even further reduce. So in the next lecture, we would talk about our algorithm where we would take variance reduced approach. There the error would be further reduced, but here also we could reduce our error by increasing the number of particles. But the error would go down as square root of n. So it's not so favorable to increase the number of particles also. So this again verifies in the diffusive limit what the heat transport is going to be. Okay, coming back to the previous question, like so what we were talking about is this diffusive problem. Like if we take diffusive problem, temperature of the wall is at 500 and 300 Kelvin. So Fourier law would tell us, okay, it should be a linear solution. It's a diffusive problem, so the mean free path is about 20 times less than the length. So we should get using Monte Carlo also, we should get a linear solution. So that kind of a matches, that kind of a verifies the algorithm. But now the question I asked was, like, I think I would give to the new participants a little bit more time. Like, so let's say it's the same problem again, 500 Kelvin and 300 Kelvin. The length is about 400 nanometer. But I'm keeping this resident time. So mean free path is, let's say, this L by 2 roughly. So L by 2 means mean free path is of the order of 200 nanometers. So not many scattering events would happen. And we have kept the boundaries at adiabatic boundary. So there is no resistance to the flow. So this limit would be close to this quasi-ballistic case. Can you predict the temperature profile now, like the steady state temperature profile, how it would look like? So take some time to think, like in a couple of minutes, then discuss again.
Maybe sir, it will be like earlier case that we had discussed, almost
You mean the Stephen Boltzmann law?
almost same throughout the same uniform type.
No, but the Debye temperature in this case is lower than what temperature we have on the left wall or most of the domain. So that is only applicable if Debye temperature is much larger than the domain temperature. So Stephen Boltzmann law won't be applicable. If you remember from the first lecture itself, we were talking briefly like how it would become.
Yes, sir.
So what would happen, like we won't be able to thermalize with the boundary completely. So the temperature would be little bit less, and some distribution, something like that would happen. And we would
Okay.
look at we are looking in the steady state, and we would look at the solution. We would drive it in quasi-ballistic limits. So the problem you would do in your homework, basically the in-class exercise would be quasi-ballistic problem, and there we would find out we never reach this wall temperature exactly. And depending on how we evolve, like so the profile could more look like initial conditions, so it might have some curvature in the beginning, and eventually it would approach some linearity, but not guaranteed it would approach linearity. Again, depends on some other conditions like impurities. We would discuss it in next. So is this problem clear? Like ballistic case, diffusive case, like and in between the quasi ballistic case, like can you
So it's
visually think now?
okay. Yeah.
So
So
why this would happen? Yeah.
so it was quasi ballistic that we had discussed
Right.
that time. Yes.
Okay. So now let's look at 2D
So
problem. We have
can we say like in diffusive case it is almost similar temperature profile as of Fourier's?
no, it would be exactly similar. Like we cannot say that this would be this equation exactly predicts the Fourier solution if we if we allow the scattering to happen many times. So like we looked at in the previous case, the 2D case, if the mean free path is let's say 20, mean free path is length by 20 times, roughly, like we would be able to predict very close to Fourier solution. If it's L by 100 or L by 1000, then we are getting much closer to the Fourier solution. If there are many such scattering processes, we would get very close to the Fourier solution. Okay, so the next problem is, like, I think I would again give you 5 minutes to think about it. It's not a very trivial problem. Again, what we are doing is adiabatic boundary. So there is no resistance from the walls. Left boundary is at 20 Kelvin, right boundary is at 10 Kelvin. So now we are changing this scattering condition, this specularity condition. So how it was reflecting. So the case of one is perfectly specular, like the ballistic example we did. So this is very close to a ballistic case. But the only thing we have changed from the first example we did was now the degree of specularity has changed. So we are changing from one perfectly specular case which we did before, and now we are changing in this. Again, the temperature of the left and right is much smaller than the Dubai temperature. So what do you think the temperature profile should be? Of course, perfectly specular case, d equal to 1, we had already talked about. It would be close to 17 point something. Like it would be like a constant throughout the domain. But can you visualize now? So let's take for 5 minutes, and then I would discuss the solution. So try to observe this figure and like maybe in 4 5 minutes try to explain, like understand and reason out like why this profile would look like this. Okay, did you think about it, the problem, like the solution making sense?
So solution is the temperature profile is more flat, maybe due to
Hmm.
specularity and
So we understand this perfectly specular would be like a constant, right? This would be given
right.
by Stephen Boltzmann, right? Now, what does the scattering is doing? Like, if it's not specular, it is creating some resistance to the flow, right? There would be some extra scattering,
So some resistance is there that is
right?
creating gradient of temperature.
Right, right. So there is a some resistance which these boundaries would now start providing, right? but most of the
Hmm.
system would still, because it's a very low temperature, most of the system would still be in a very ballistic or quasi ballistic limit. So of course we would not reach the boundary temperature exactly. So if it's, let's say, perfectly diffusive, like we would, perfectly diffusive mean more resistance. So we would try to reach like as close to the boundary temperature as we can, right? It won't be a linear profile though. Like it would be very non-linear profile. So the boundary scattering, like we are increasing the speculative, boundary scattering is increasing, and then that's how we get the. But if the boundary scattering is little bit less, then we would be much closer to the Stefan Boltzmann law, but somewhat closer to the other limit. So then in between these curves we could explain. Is it making sense, Yogesh?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. So the degree of speculative, you could, so basically all the problems you could think of, like you could first visualize their solution, how it should look like, and then of course the algorithm would give you that. Like of course it would come from mathematically, but physically also you should have understanding what we are expecting. Like qualitatively we should understand how the behavior would look like.
Right, sir.
Right. So in the absence of intrinsic scattering, these profiles are not likely to be linear, as we understand also. Okay. So the next is impurities. Same problem. So now what we have done is boundaries are back to adiabatic. No change is the in the boundary. So perfectly specular conditions. So it would perfectly reflect specularly. But now we have some impurities in the system, and impurity concentration could change from 10 to power 24 to 10 to power 28. Again, the temperature is much less than the Debye temperature. So basically, we would be in a quasi ballistic limit for a very low, ballistic limit for a very low concentration. So it would be very close to this solution. But can you visualize what's happening with the scattering? Again, take maybe 2-3 minutes, and then we could discuss the solution.
Sir, as you discussed during impurities, there is random distribution of
Right.
so,
So it would also,
even in the
impurities
backward
would also,
direction
right, impurities could also lead to backward scattering, right? So there would be some resistance to the flow.
flow, right?
So basically, the profile would look more like it was like adiabatic scatter, like when we change the specularity, right? So
Yes,
the
sir.
more impurities, like we are getting closer to the, and also you could see like because we are in a very ballistic limit, like we are offsetted because the Stephen Boltzmann law is somewhat again applicable. So we are not like around 15, we are not getting this distribution. So that's the one other thing you have to keep in mind.
Right.
And in between, there are several other cases. So
Mhm.
let's say like now there is a example. We take another case. Now the boundaries specularity condition is going to change. Like it could change. Let's say specularity is maybe let's say zero point 0.5, and there is a high amount of impurities as well, high impurities. And let's look at the solution where the length is 400 nanometer first, and the left wall is at 20 Kelvin, 10 Kelvin. So basically much less than Dubai temperature. Dubai temperature, let's assume 350 Kelvin, Dubai temperature. So now, how would the temperature profile look like in this case? We are plotting temperature vertically. So this is 20, this is 10, and this is along the length 0, 400 nanometer, and this is somewhere around at 17. So can you think of like maybe let's say 10 to the power 26 or 27 meter? That's the impurity concentration.
So, sir, impurity is increasing, high impurity.
Yeah, high impurity. So basically, we would go very close to 20 right now in this case. It would be again non-linear curve, and it would change something like this. It won't be a linear line, but it would be something like this, right?
Right. So somehow it is like a high resistance.
Right. Somehow it's like a high resistance. That's correct.
Mm.
Okay, let's change the problem little bit now. Same problem. Instead of taking 20 and 10 Kelvin, now let's take 500 and 300 Kelvin. So your mean free path and mean free path let's assume to be 20 times. So sorry, mean free path let's assume to be 20 times less than the length L. So how would this profile look like now? Of course, we are doing all approximate numbers, but this is to just get a basic understanding. Like
Right, right. So we are significantly reducing mean free path.
yeah, mean free path is very less, and assume specularity like this and impurity conditions also. So let's do first simple problem. Let's say specularity is 1. So it's a perfectly specular and there is no impurities also.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, it would be a linear, right?
Linear, 100% linear.
Right. Okay. What would happen if we make D equal to 0.5?
Slightly flattened.
Uh, which flattened? So you mean like we are adding more resistance, like we are adding more scattering. And we have already said the mean free path, like if it was 0.05 L without D equal to 1, it would even become smaller, right? So maybe it would become now 0.04 L or something. So if it was not perfectly linear, like if it was not perfectly touching the boundary temperature, it would go even closer to the boundary temperature now, right? 500 and 300 Kelvin. Making sense?
Mm. Yes.
Because we are adding more resistance. You add more impurities, like we are getting even closer. But the
Mm-hmm.
non-linearity might still remain somewhat in the system depending on how this process happened. But we would get very fairly close to the linear because there is a lot of scattering events happening. Once we add impurity, maybe the mean free path would become 0.03 L or even smaller. Many such scattering events are happening. So I think
Yes, sir.
that's what I wanted to explain, like through different examples and this Monte Carlo theory. So next lecture we would take, right now this formulation we did was not energy conserved, and it was taking a lot of time to do these simulations also. So in the next lecture we would do few simplifications. We would make it energy conserved formulation. We would also introduce this variance reduced. So variance reduced means like we don't have to sample the entire space completely. We could reduce it around equilibrium temperature, and then we would linearize the equation also. So these three steps we would do, and based on these three steps, like after the simplified equation, in the Sunday's lecture, so in the next lecture we would talk about all of these steps. In the Sunday's lecture, we would implement this. Like, so I would give you the code, and you would try to run it and see how it happens. You would go through the code on Sunday complete. So that's an hands-on exercise. Okay, if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, we would stop here then.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you all.